Hello, I'm David Wheeler, the founding editor of Al-Fanar Media, a publication that for 7 years has focused on education, research, and culture in the Middle East. We've been fortunate for many of those years to work with Spark, which focuses on education and jobs in fragile states. 5 years ago, we joined forces to foster collaboration among organizations to help young refugees get access to education. Today, we face a different kind of crisis in which a highly infectious virus, a tiny strip of RNA, is threatening to have a huge negative impact, to disrupt education and make employment impossible for many of the young people across the region. Despite those negative effects, we hope to help shape a better future for young people. Once again, we've banded together with Spark. I'd like to turn to Yannick Dupont, the founder and director of Spark, to talk further about what we're trying to do with this conference.
Thank you, David, and welcome to all the participants in this first time ever online conference. I'm very grateful for all the help from Al-Fanar, our corporation, and also the folks from Run the World, a wonderful new online conferencing software. I think this is an amazing new opportunity to take things online, especially in these times. So, for Spark, for those of you who don't yet know, we've been working 25 years supporting higher education and job creation in different countries affected by conflict, of which a decade now in the Middle East and North Africa. We started actually 10 years ago supporting business centers in Gaza and in the West Bank. And so when we were planning this conference, that did struck a note with me, because actually, when this whole crisis broke out, the first initiative to coach our people on how to work online and do online business support, online education, came actually from our former partners from the Gaza Strip, because they have a lot of experience in this. Now we are at the moment operating job creation programs across the region, and most of you will know us, and it's the topic of today, from our refugee scholarship program, also known as Dynamic Futures, which has become now the largest and most comprehensive scholarship program for refugees in the Middle East. And in these difficult times, we're actually going to celebrate soon something positive, and that's the enrollment of the 10,000th scholar. And the program is supported by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, European Union, Education Above All, Fadlo Khuri program, for instance, in Qatar, ISDB, and Kuwait. The current crisis, especially its economic impact, that does risk to wipe out a lot of progress. So hence we organize this conference to discuss with all of you and our esteemed speakers on how you're responding to this crisis, what innovative methods you are using to keep the education going. And today, I'm very proud to welcome our keynote speaker, the president of the American University Beirut, Professor Dr. Fadlo Khuri, who may not need introduction to many of you, because he's presiding over what is one of the oldest and most reputable private universities in the Middle East, and that has made already very impressive moves to online and distance education, even before this crisis. And I commend them really, also on a personal note, that in these very difficult times for Lebanon, not just with COVID, but also the economic crisis that preceded even the situation of COVID in Lebanon. I think they're leading the way and bringing positive innovations in how to solve some of these challenges. One last note, for everyone attending, note that for each session, you do need to join separately today. So if you're registered, and for those of you who are interested in joining the happy hour networking working meeting, make sure that you download this Run the World app and sign in for that session in order to participate. And one more word on the cocktail session, or this that's possible in the app. There you can request direct interaction with any of the participants or speakers. So it's a very good way to have direct conversations and exchange innovative ideas. But for now, I want to give the floor to our esteemed keynote speaker. For the second time, you were also our guest in Amsterdam at the Ignite conference a few years back, Professor Dr. Khuri. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Yannick. Thank you, David. A big shout out to Spark for the wonderful work you do. Al-Fanar also. And I really believe that this cataclysm of COVID-19 and this confluence of crises is going to, if anything, crystallize the work we have to do. So partners and colleagues, friends with shared goals and struggles, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. When the American University of Beirut was founded in 1866, its mission was clear. It existed to provide excellence in education, to participate in the advancement of knowledge through research, and to serve the peoples of the Middle East and beyond. I'm quoting from the words of the founders. The region it came to serve was not safe from challenges back then, and has since then had more than its fair share of chronic instability. Over more than 150 years, the university and its outstanding faculty, staff, and students from all over the world, currently we have students from 96 countries registered, have witnessed and been part of the unfolding of history as both Lebanon and the region transformed. World wars, the Arab Revolution, independence movements, and the Lebanese Civil War are some of what this university has withstood as the primary institution of higher learning in the region, one that continued to educate and graduate generations of world leaders. AUB has created many solutions to combat even more socio-political and economic obstacles that have come along the way. It kept its doors open and its classes running, and it continued to pledge to act as a beacon of hope and a bastion of liberal thought in a region in which those qualities were endangered. And most importantly, I believe it offered a safe and inclusive space for dialogue and transformative education to all without discrimination. AUB has graduated generations of global citizens who've been educated with core values of integrity, inclusivity, servant leadership, and civic engagement. The mission to educate is open to all and spreads well beyond the walls of the AUB campus to neighborhood initiatives and partnerships with sister universities, both local and regional. As part of our commitment to promote lifelong learning and increase access to education, AUB provides considerable financial aid support to allow meritorious students from different backgrounds the opportunity to study here. We've also created several programs that cater to particularly fragile communities to open doors for access to education. Online education was therefore an option well before it became a necessity more recently. So online education has been a priority at our university for quite a while now in an effort to make education accessible to all, to Lebanon, in Lebanon, and well beyond. Since 2016, our Center for Civic Engagement and Community Service collaborated with the World Food Program and partner local NGOs to start a digital skills training program throughout Lebanon. Today, that program reaches more than 2,200 participants from Lebanon's most vulnerable communities. The program promotes social, educational, and economic inclusion by equipping both Syrian refugee and their host Lebanese youth from marginalized communities with the hard and soft skills they need to participate in the growing online economy. Through this program's 12-week vocational courses in computer literacy and data science designed by AUB educators, participants aged 18 to 35 are connected to new career tracks in high-tech industries as well as other economic sectors, adapting to fast technological change. Top students are then invited to return as teaching assistants and workshop facilitators. Today, the World Food Program is implementing a sister program in Iraq utilizing the curriculum developed by AUB. Another program led by CCECS under the Strategic Partnership for Higher Education, Innovation and Reform funded by the UK Department for International Development is the Partnership for Digital Learning and Increased Access, or PADILEA, which aims to facilitate access to higher education for those displaced and affected by the Syrian crisis in Jordan and Lebanon. With support, development, and design from King's College London, CCECS implements a blended certificate and 2 study hubs in the Biqa of Lebanon with the aim to prepare Syrian refugee and vulnerable host community youth for entry or re-entry into higher education. The 8-month blended AUB certified learning program provides over 2 semesters in critically foundational skills in English, humanities, math, and science, and transferable skills in information technology through curricula developed and taught by our AUB professors from the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. Online modules offered by AUB faculty with the use of Google Classroom as the main platform overcome barriers preventing refugees from entering high school, such as lack of legal documentation, capacity in educational institutions, language difficulties, high student fees, and potential legal or political complications. ABLE, or Accessibility for a Bolder Learning Experience, is an initiative offered by the Office of Information Technology in collaboration with the Student Affairs Accessible Education Office that opens the door of higher education for all through digital accessibility. Here, ABLE actually put Lebanon on the map of Global Accessibility Awareness Day 2019. Multiple capacity building efforts started and new affiliations such as REACH, Research for Education Accessibility Challenges, took place. ABLE helped connect special needs students with the administration to support enrollment and foster 3 innovative student projects: automated Braille encoder mappable, a campus accessibility navigation guide, and the accessibility web engine. So it came as no surprise to our university and to anyone familiar with this particularly unstable region for that matter, but the challenges have just kept coming, and within the past year alone, Lebanon has been hit by a concordance of calamities. With no time, online courses became our best and only recourse to perform our duties and for our students to attain their education. So our definition of fragility actually expanded, and the count of the fragile community substantially grew. I noticed an article in the Spark COVID-19 Stories and News about how we're adapting with the title Protests, Inflation, and COVID-19, Lebanon Adapts. Yes, Lebanon and AUB have had to adapt, not only to this global pandemic, but to a series of economic crises, political instability, and numerous episodes of turmoil that accompanied both. Well before the COVID-19 pandemic had taken over, Lebanon had endured political and economic mismanagement for years, for decades really, and this is now climaxed in a near complete collapse of the Lebanese economy. An uprising that started on the 17th of October of last year forced all businesses and educational institutions shut. The university went online for large parts of that period, and so in a way our faculty and students were very well prepared for what followed when the COVID-19 pandemic struck and exacerbated the situation. Within no time, 800 gifted faculty members were trained on delivering course content online to our students who had to return to their homes in 96 different countries, with the exception of 50 students we could not allow to return to their conflict-torn homes for safety reasons. At this point, the administration had to make a series of difficult decisions quickly, while the university's medical experts, researchers, and academics quickly became a major source of information that proactively helped shape national policy here to counter the health crisis. There was an urgent need to understand the epidemic, to develop precautions and procedures, and figure out the best way forward. In early December 2019, we had already organized a team of economic advisors to advise the university and potentially the country on what to expect, outcomes, risks, difficulties, challenges, and best ways to mitigate the unwanted impact on the country and specifically on our students. So we have the privilege of the care and stewardship of young, eager minds whom we're responsible to educate on one hand, and hundreds of thousands of more individuals to cater to and equip for this challenge and for future similar trials. There's no roadmap for AUB, but every individual in our community knew instinctively how critical the work is. They knew that the show would have to go on, and it went on online. In today's session, we're focusing on the educational aspects of our mission. So as our hospital is catering to patients in states of distress from COVID-19, or before that, from the uprising and violence, our online classrooms were buzzing with creative video projects, online presentations, team brainstorming sessions, meetings and trainings, efficient examinations, even larger classes that could now encompass more students, who could now access their classrooms more easily to enjoy a richer diversity of valuable input. We had to adapt to cuts in electricity and how to store the curricula and the programs, and we've started to do that fairly well. There's a lot of evidence that suggests that blended learning improves learning outcomes. And the lessons we've learned as we've explored these new horizons are many. We intend to benefit fully from this experience and to use all the innovative teaching and learning methods developed moving forward. And that's going to be critical because the uncertainty in this country is ongoing and likely escalating. The IMF and the World Bank both predict that by the end of 2020, between 60 to 70% of the residents of Lebanon, citizens and guests alike, will be displaced under the poverty line. Yet despite these challenges, with unique circumstances unlike any of those experienced in AUB's prior 154 years since its foundation, the university is determined to maintain as much normalcy and consistency for our students and the people who we serve as we can possibly offer. If anything, we will use this experience to transform our educational, research, and service missions. Today, with the rising challenges, our mission grows stronger and ever more urgent. As the number of vulnerable people has increased with job losses and an increasing inability to pay tuition or loans, we've actually increased financial aid options to ensure continuation of education. In addition to scholarships, we've already committed to for the education of meritorious refugees and other vulnerable communities, and we're expanding our collaborations to support them. We have to factor in that Lebanon remains host to the greatest number of refugees per capita population in the world, and we have to increase our services to them in education, in healthcare, and helping empower and protect their communities. So we've created solidarity funds. We're raising fundraising campaigns in new directions so that all together we can face the challenge as well. We adapt and we grow, but we don't forget our priorities. Earlier in this academic year, as we celebrated the founding of the institution and the values that it was founded on, I reiterated that our students are at the core of our AUB mission and the motto that they may have life and have it more abundantly. In our commitment to help the most vulnerable, I said we shall do everything in our power to ensure that all our enrolled students are able to complete their education without dropping out for financial, psychological, or other reasons related to the current situation. This will require some fortitude, patience, and careful study. Now, as a kid who grew up mostly between the US and Lebanon, I've always loved baseball since I was a small child. And the great pitcher Greg Maddux once said, "I could probably throw harder if I wanted, but why? When they're in a jam, a lot of pitchers try to throw harder. Me, I try to locate better." So again, the emphasis on precision. COVID-19 is a big part of what we're facing globally, but in addition to the threat to our health and the global economic depression, Lebanon's currency has devalued by several 100% since October, and already more than 50% of people are below the poverty line. It's important to remember that not long ago, Lebanon was an upwardly mobile middle-income country, and the university that I lead, certainly in December of 2017, when Spark very graciously invited me, and Yannick invited me, the university I lead was focused on recruiting students and faculty from more than 96 countries, growing our endowment, and providing the greatest possible research impact as well as service and education. Now, working on 40% of the budget we had projected for this year, we're really trying to just save lives and grow minds, save lives and grow minds. There's a lot going on, and there are a lot of angry and desperate people everywhere. So the pressure to act quickly and throw harder is enormous. But in my view, it's always better to take your time and get it right. Greg Maddux was right. I could throw harder if I wanted. We all could. But pitching is about location, just like leadership is about judgment. And accuracy and calm matter now more than ever. I constantly remind our students, faculty, and staff of the old adage that says, never waste the opportunity of a good crisis, especially when it results in the enrichment of our educational system, an expansion of access to educational opportunities, and an increase in the successful implementation of blended learning. The COVID-19 pandemic reminds us that global concerns are the concerns of each and every one of us, and we have to all be on board in order to make a positive impact. I'm really honored and delighted to work with rare people like you who are just as concerned and dedicated to creating a more just society and a more inclusive, sustainable, and healthy world. Thank you for engaging me in this collaboration, and best wishes for a successful conference.
Thank you, President Khuri. We're happy to take some questions from the audience. You need to use your chat feature to send questions in. So please do submit questions. We have time for a question or two.
I can't hear anything.
I'm going to go ahead and ask a question.
Sure. Go ahead, David.
Since you either stunned the audience into silence or they're still figuring out the technology, what were some of your biggest challenges in making the transition to online and blended learning? I mean, I realized you had a head start, which is great, but in terms of very suddenly and quickly having to go all online, how did that work?
So I think the challenges are manifold. One of them is the fact that Lebanon is subject to electricity cuts. So a lot of the lectures get cut off, convincing faculty and others to store, learning how to assess people and reminding people, for example, that the whole concept of the examination was something that Ezra Stiles, I think Yale's fifth president, made up in the, if I'm not mistaken, in the late 18th or early 19th century. And it probably is not the best modern tools of assessment had up there. But in addition, I think one of our early challenges was really when COVID-19 hit here, David. And a lot of our students from all over the world wanted to get home, was getting them out in something under 60 hours before the airports closed, both here and elsewhere, and then making sure that we could store information for them to catch up. Those are some of the challenges. But there are also challenges with people who've taught a course for 30, 40 years in a certain way, agreeing to teach it in an entirely different way and understanding that you can't just cram the same material in the same amount of time. I think all of these things we're having certainly growing pains, but the experiment is moving along nicely. Right,
great. And what are your, one last question, and then I think we have to close to give people a break before the next session. What are your plans for the fall at this point? Have you made a decision about what you're going to do about the fall?
I think for the summer, our plan, which we're going to communicate in the next few days, is that the lecture courses will remain online, and selected laboratory research or experimental courses where you need some non-substitutable experience, those will be in person with substantial distance learning, 2 meters or more, and in shifts. For the fall, At this point, I just learned today that all the University of California systems are saying it's unlikely that they're going to open in the fall. We're weighing both options. Lebanon has a much lower rate of COVID-19. That anything we do is going to have to be very cautious. I can't imagine that even if things get dramatically better, we're going to go back to the big classroom approach. So my guess is we'll do some form of blended learning between online, experiential, and didactic in person.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for speaking today, and we wish you the best of luck in your plans. We all realize you're in an extremely difficult situation, and hope that you find some help going forward. Thanks again for joining. I wanted to remind everybody that they need to join the next session separately from this one. So you need to, I will end this session, then you need to log into the next session. Please do join us this afternoon for further sessions. We're starting, the next session is Acceleration to Online Education with May Wazan, who's also in Beirut. Thanks again, and goodbye for now.